So I've been asked to pick 5 favorite clips from my video parts over the past 20 years, and that's not an easy task. But some of the clips I picked might not be the most obvious, but they have an interesting backstory for me and my life and maybe whatever just happened that day. So Seek and Destroy was what I would consider the first real video part that I filmed. I had done trailblazing, but that was just a couple weekends with your buddies riding trails. And Seek and Destroy was where I'm like, all right, I'm committed to this. I want quality clips, quality riding. we're gonna do this right. And that was something that wasn't happening a lot in BMX back then. A lot of people were putting out videos, but it was that. They were just kind of like out randomly riding, randomly filming, which is good because it captured like an essence, but it also wasn't like a full commitment to making a project that you're proud of and stoked on every single clip. It was also a progressive time for me as a rider. I was just coming into my own as a street rider and kind of developing my style. And some of the clips that were more obvious, like the gap to rail stuff and things like that. But there's one specifically, a North Carolina clip where I ride off a ledge and gap to like ice, like you transfer over gap to ice on a much lower rail. And I think at the time, it was a random clip that I didn't think that much about. We were just out riding and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go from here to here. And I think it's because I didn't really even understand yet that was scary. I just kind of was figuring out what street was to me, and that made sense. I guess maybe just from my trail riding background, it was like doing a transfer or something. It was just the street version of that. And when I go back and watch that, it's kind of just a random clip mixed into the part. It's fast, it's quick, but it's a big transfer, and I think it's something, a style of riding that you don't see a lot of people doing even now. I've been back to that spot later years, and I'm like, the fuck was I thinking? Just like, but like in the spur of the moment, especially when you're young, I do a lot more spur of the moment tricks back then, which led to a lot of crashes and injuries as well. But it was just the way I rode back then. It was the opposite of what I do now. I try to think things through now, make sure I'm focused on it, make sure it's something that's worth it for me. But back then, I just see it, and I didn't want to waste time. I didn't want to even give myself time to be scared. So I was like, go, 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 go. So yeah, I don't know. It might not be a clip that stands out to everyone, but that one just jumps out at me. Criminal Mischief, probably my most famous video part. And the clip I'm going to talk about is far from an obvious one, but it's one of my favorite spots to ride in the entire world. And FDR, I tail whipped the doubles at FDR. And back then, tail whips were not commonplace, really, especially over something unique like that, something out of the ordinary other than like a stock box jump or a stock dirt jump. People weren't doing bunny hop whips yet, other than a few of the elite. Like, people were winning major events. Dave Asado was winning major events with bunny hop tail whips. So tail whips just weren't, it was still a big trick. It wasn't a normal thing. So for me, I just learned tail whips and was trying to do one on something every day to just keep them dialed. And it seemed super scary to do them over that double for me at the time. And I remember me and Matt Berenger were riding together that morning, and we were filming for Criminal Mischief, and we made an agreement that if I did the tail whip over the doubles, that he would flare the vert wall. So I went out and did a couple like stiff-legged, like no footers, like trying to get the feel of it, and finally I whipped it, and it worked pretty fast. But just because of where it is and what that day felt like to me, that agreement with Matt, it just kind of resonates in my mind when I watch that video part. There's a lot of good stories, and there's a lot of clips that would stand out as bangers well before that, and of course they're scarier, they're more difficult, but that clip just resonates with me and the spirit of what we were doing back then. Stay fit, there's a tire ride to Overgrind that I do. I think the spot's in Delaware. I was filming that with Navaz. It's sort of towards the closing hours that we had left to film for Stay Fit, and I had a few spots lined up. That was one of them. And I remember, I really like that clip because I feel like it surprises you. I jump on that rail, and the reactions that I would hear at the premieres and things when I would just transfer over to the Overgrind like got me excited, because I don't think anybody saw it coming. I think they expect you to ride off the end and do a tail whip or a bar spin or something like that. And you know, when I just go completely to the right and do that overgrind. And that was a high hop as well. Like I had to get really, really steep and high, and somebody was walking out just as I was about to try it again after crashing a couple times. And so that was my last try before we got kicked out, and it worked. And honestly, like my hops were on point back then. I don't think I could bunny hop that high right now. So yeah, that one really resonates with me. It's just a general surprise element to it, and I think that's a hard thing to do in a video part, and especially these days, is to surprise somebody. Even if it's the craziest thing, it's like, well, yeah, what we expected is something crazy. But when you can kind of throw somebody a curveball, that's a cool feeling. Holi Fit was exciting to me because I feel like we were doing everything right. We had Stu filming and editing the video, and he was committed to it as the riders were. And that's something I hadn't had in a while. It was like, oh, you get footage from this guy, footage from that guy. Oh, who's going to edit it? We're not sure exactly. So I felt like with all the other projects, I was compromising something on some level, whether it was the deadline or who was filming or not knowing who was going to edit it. So with Holi Fit, I just felt like Stu was committed, I was committed, and we were going to make the best video and the best video part possible. So I went into that with a lot of passion. The Penn Rail in Philly, it's a rail I went to for the first time when I was 16 or 17 years old and jumped on it, squirrely as could be. And then I ice picked it in Criminal Mischief, which was a dream trick for me at the time. And we would even joke about manualing the Penn Rail because I had manualed other big rails and things like that. But at the time, it really was just a joke. And then as the years progressed, I'm like, man, I really think I could actually manual that. And it was an idea, just a vague idea for a long time. And then when we started on Holi Fit and I was committed, I wanted to get all the best clips I could, and that was on my list. I was like, I gotta manual the Penn Rail. So that spot can be a little bit of a bust sometimes. So we went there, and I told Stu, I was like, hey, like, get everything set up. I'm gonna warm up over here, and when you guys are ready, just shoot me a text. I'm gonna come, I'm gonna give it one look, and then I'm gonna start trying. You know, just in case we got kicked out, I wanted to get as many tries in as I could. And so then Stu calls me, I'm like over around the corner, and he says, hey, you know, we're all set up, but they're like setting up tents and speakers, and there's like a security guard right at the bottom of the rail. And I'm like, shit. So I set my bike down and I walk over there, I kind of scope out the situation, and it's just a full, like, again, they're setting up for some kind of event at the bottom of the rail. And but those guys are all ready to go, so I'm like, you know what, screw it, let's just give it a try. I might be able to get 2 or 3 before we get kicked out. Who knows, maybe I'll get lucky. And so I look at it once, I come, try it, and it works perfect first time. And I felt like there was just some kind of like angel on my shoulder that day. And the guys setting up and all the security guards, they were just confused because I didn't even stop. I just rode out the other end of the campus. Like, I didn't even stop to watch the footage or anything. I just kept going and was just on cloud 9, rode past like 3 security guards. And the guy that was setting up, I think he was just super confused because it wasn't even a grind. To him, it just appeared like I just floated down this handrail, and there wasn't a noise or nothing, and I didn't stop. I didn't make it. I was on cloud 9, but I didn't make it seem that way. I just kept riding. So I think there was just confusion, just kind of looking around, and you know, I remember Sean Mack was just like jaw dropped, and yeah, that was a good day because that was a trick that was on my mind for a lot of years. It went from being just a joke to a dream to a reality, and with all the circumstances, it felt really good to roll away from that manual. Kind of fast forwarding to more recent times, my real X Games BMX part, that was a cool opportunity. You know, you got to film a video part you're proud of in 3 months, and even though it's only a minute and a half, that's a lot of footage to get in 3 months for it to all be stuff you're really proud of. I especially like lining up with the filmer, you know, Navaz would be on different trips, I would be on different trips. So the amount of days we actually got together, you know, was less than a month worth of days. For me, it was a weird time. I just had a lot of distractions at the time, and my headspace wasn't necessarily in the best place, but I knew I had to commit to that. I knew I'd be really bummed at myself if I let personal distractions compromise the quality of a video part I put out. So I kind of really just put my head down and focused on this part because I wanted it to be the best I could make it. Some days I really didn't feel like riding because I was just going through some random stuff. And this day in particular, there's a gap to electrical box, and that morning started out really rough. I went to a spot and I had something in mind, and it wasn't really going too well. And then I was like, you know what? I think somebody's done this before. I think this is an ABD. And I shot Scotty Kramer a text. I was like, hey, have you done this before? And he's like, yeah. And he like listed off all the tricks he'd done at that spot. And I was like, ah, shit, like Scotty already did this. And so then I like tried to do something else and it wasn't working. And I just like, I was truthfully like just being straight up, like I got really emotional. I just like was going through some personal stuff. The stuff filming wasn't working, and I just had like an emotional breakdown right there at the spot. Like I don't think I've ever lost my mind like that. And then so I'm just kind of feeling rough. The day is progressing, but I'm still trying to make some stuff happen. And we linked up with Garrett Burns, and we go to this gap to electrical block spot that me and Wiz and Sherbo, we used to go to this little pyramid spot all the time back in the day and just jump the little pyramid, do tricks over it. I remember I like whipped it back in the day and I was real psyched on that. And like Wiz had some good photos on it. And Sherbo had always talked about gapping to ice in the electrical box. I think he'd even gone there at times to feel it out. But when you start going really fast at that little wedge, it gets really bucky and unpredictable. And so I know, you know, Bob had kind of backed off of it. I'd felt it out before, but never committed. And then, you know, this was the day, like, all right, this is going to happen. And like I said, very unpredictable bucky lip. So I was just getting sent, like couldn't kind of casing the electrical box with my peg, missing the electrical box, everything else. And finally pulled it, rolled away, and just having Garrett Burns right there, like lifelong friend, and cheering me on still in 2016 was really cool. And just kind of, you know, having a good friend there still coaching you through both personal problems and riding problems, and just getting it done and saying like, everything's going to be okay, everything's still the same. And that felt good. And putting out that part felt really good. To be doing that show with a lot of the younger riders and the progression that things have reached, and in 2016 to be able to like have a part that I felt like held its own with some of today's best street riders made me really proud. And I felt lucky to be a part of that whole project. And yeah, that gap to electrical box specifically, just that was a good day. Thanks for watching. It's not easy choosing 5 clips out of 20 years of video parts, but those are some of my favorites.